let's just sew whatever.
Okay, so we are going to be cutting out the itty bitty bowler bag from Sew Yours Patterns. I got, I believe this is the Mora faux leather from Emmaline Pattern Company, or just Emmaline Pattern, I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the adjustable crossbody strap. This needs to be 3 inches wide. So I'm gonna grab my ruler and my rotary cutter and just go 3 inches in from the outer edge, going slow enough to not hit my laptop. That sucks. Okay. So then we need our strap connectors, which should be 3 inches wide by 1.5 inches tall. So I'm just gonna cut off the selvage here, nice and straight. And then I probably want these to be 1.5 inches wide by 1.5 inches tall, since I am using vinyl for this. So I'll just cut one that's 3 by 1.5. So 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do 3.5 by 1.5 just in case. Okay. So that is my strap connector. I am not doing card slots. I'm not doing the card slot back, so I don't need the card slot interfacing. I will need the zipper pocket lining and binding. Exterior and lining panels, we'll go ahead and cut. I'm just gonna use a woven interfacing for those. Zipper panels, probably cut out of my exterior. Pocket stabilizer, this is my slip pocket. Stabilizer, flap closure, stabilizer. Here is my exterior panel. I always like to keep separate piles of, like, this is my interfacing, this is my fabric. There we go. So this is a stabilizer. This is the gusset. I'm gonna use the vinyl for that piece. And then there is a cut list here, or I should say those are like labels. I'm not sure that, I don't know if I want to cut out the exterior first and then interface it, or cut my interfacing first. Gonna kind of go for it. So I am using fabric that I designed, and I had initially intended it to be a freesia fold over, but decided I don't feel like making those right now. So I'm just gonna trace this out within the fabric. This bag is so small that you're not gonna need a ton of fabric, which is cool. One piece, and then another up here. So that's my exterior. I think I'm gonna line this with waterproof canvas. I almost feel like it doesn't even need a zipper pocket inside though, since it's so small. Because this bag is so small, you want to be really careful about cutting out those pattern pieces pretty perfectly to get the shape just right. gosh, it's so small. I mean, obviously it's itty bitty. So this one is a similar shape to the Betsy bowler, which I would say is a small to medium bag. And then this one is like small to extra small size bag. So I've got my heat press warming up. So now I need to cut out the slip pocket and the flap. And this fabric really isn't directional, so I'm not worried about it. For one of your exterior panels, you could probably use just your vinyl or the lining fabric as well, if you're using like a custom fabric, so that you can save precious fabric. That is my slip pocket, little piece there. I'll probably make my zipper panel out of the vinyl since that is attached to the gusset. So then all I need is the flap closure piece out of the exterior then, because we already cut our slip pocket. So this can go in my lining pile, and then this can go in my lining pile. Lining pile. Yeesh. I feel like this flap is pretty important because it's the main focal point of the bag. So I want to make sure I cut this well enough. And then any of these extra little bits could be used for Devon pouches or other little scrap busting fabrics. Oh, so cute. Before I interface those, I will give them a nice press as well. So one exterior, one lining, one exterior, one lining, one exterior, one lining. Set that aside and we'll start on our gusset and zipper panels. If I can, I like to keep one edge nice and straight in case I want to cut shoulder straps or something for another bag. So I'm going to start by cutting out my zipper panels. They are measurements given, or you can use the pattern piece. I'm going to use the measurements, which I will not say out loud because you need the pattern to cut it. I probably won't add any interfacing to my zipper panel since I'm using vinyl. It is a thinner vinyl, but I feel like the binding and the lining are going to give it enough structure. And there is interfacing on the gusset, and I will add that. So this goes in my lining pile. And then make sure that you're cutting out the gusset fabric, not the gusset stabilizer piece. That's going to be important to note. So I'm lining this up as close to the edge as possible so that I don't have to cut that part, and then I'm not wasting very much vinyl. So I'll clip it down, and then I'm going to use these pattern weights to help me trace this out as perfectly as possible. Okay, and then this, I'll need lining, so I'll set that aside. And the seam allowance on this bag is very small. It's like 1/4 of an inch on some pieces, and then 3/8 of an inch when you're sewing the gusset all together to the bag. So you really want to make sure that you don't have many snips into your fabric if you're using a rotary cutter. This one is about 1/4 of an inch. I think it'll be okay, especially since I'm going to add interfacing. I'm trying to decide if I want the flap to be the vinyl. I feel like the flap is a focal point, so I won't do that. Yeah. But you could definitely make one of your front panels, this piece here, out of vinyl or lining fabric, because you're not going to see a whole lot of it. I'm also trying to think, like, do I want to add like a little swoopy accent to the front using this vinyl? Because it is really thin vinyl, so it would be okay. I won't worry about it. Ooh, or a trim to the top of that pocket would be cute. All right, let's move on to cutting out our lining and interfacing. Okay, for the interfacing, I'm just using a woven, and all I'm gonna do is just kind of not fussy cut, I'm just gonna rough cut around, and then I'll trim it all down later. Be careful with your rotary cutter. And I really do change my mind from time to time on how I like to interface, whether I'm cutting out my interfacing first or cutting out my fabric first. I am not worrying about how perfectly the front panel is interfaced. You can see I'm missing a few spots, but this is going to get covered up by the flap and slip pocket, so I'm not going to worry about it being absolutely perfect. But the other side, you do. And you could always kind of what we call frankenfuse pieces over it to help stabilize. So there are all those pieces. For my gusset, I'm going to use Faux Plus. Decovil would also be a really great option. Decovil Light, I should say. But I love using Faux Plus. It's so inexpensive, easy to fuse, etc. So I'm gonna lay down the pattern weights. You want to make sure that you don't press your items for too long. Some interfacings do come undone if they're fused for too long. It'll like start to burn, so be careful. Let those cool before cutting them or manipulating them. Let that glue set. The stabilizer for the gusset is not sewn into the seam, side seam of the bag. So you want to be sure that you're using an interfacing that will fuse nicely. So sometimes what I like to do is kind of warm up the interfacing first so that it sticks where I set it, and then I'll continue to press it. So it looks like we'll need an exterior stabilizer, a flap closure stabilizer, and a slip pocket stabilizer. But I don't know if I really want to add those. Definitely want flap stabilizer. I concur there with my fabric selections. So what fabrics you're using, this will kind of differ, but I'm using a thicker I'm using a thicker cotton canvas. So I'm not going to need as much interfacing as an all cotton woven bag would need. So definitely want flap stabilizer. It says to cut one of these. And then this gets fused along the bottom and the sides, but you leave the top edge unfused. Well, without stabilizer. Sans stabilizer. So this strip here I can use to interface where magnetic snaps go or for zipper panels. So this is my flap now. Go ahead and trim that down. There's our flap. This feels like a good amount of stabilizer. Still holds its shape. So now to decide which side I should cover up. I think I'll cover up this side. Okay. Since I'm not adding the exterior stabilizer to the front, I will go ahead and add the slip pocket stabilizer. One, because we're going to be adding a magnetic snap closure to this, and two, because I still want the bag to keep its shape. This is also all the SoFuse Plus I have, so that's why I'm being super picky about where I'm adding the stabilizer. I do believe you would be very happy with how your bag turns out if you interface it as suggested fully. Slip pocket stabilizer, flap closure stabilizer, done with these pieces, and the gusset stabilizer. So whatever I'm done with, I like to clip together and just push out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and trim these down. That way my seam allowances are accurate. There's that. Now I'll do the exterior stabilizer. A tip a friend sent to me in an email was that they have a piece of sheet metal under their cutting mat, and they use magnets to hold their pattern pieces in place. So I thought that was really cool. I shared that on Instagram a few weeks ago, and I got a lot of messages that were like, oh my gosh, that's genius. I went out and did it, and it's amazing. So I probably won't ever do that, but I would think about doing it and want to do it. Okay. Oh, this is my flap back piece. This is going to be my front because it's more fully interfaced. And then this gets centered 3/8 of an inch around the entire edge. Sans interfacing. Okay, these are scrap pieces that I don't need now. And I can fully trim these down. Gosh, so cute. So exterior stabilizer, I'm all done with this piece. All done. I don't think I'm gonna add a zipper pocket into this bag. It looks like a 5-inch zipper piece, which is super cute. I love the idea, but I don't think anyone's going to require it to have it, and it'll just make it go faster since I'm sewing a few for a show coming up. So now we're ready to move on to our lining fabric, and I am going to be lining this with waterproof canvas. So that's why I've also decided to omit quite a bit of interfacing. So the zipper pocket is meant to go on the exterior. If you wanted to add an extra pocket, I would say just go ahead and add an extra just slip pocket and cut 2 of your slip pocket pieces, 2 of your slip pocket stabilizer pieces, and do that. You could even add a strip of vinyl to kind of help make it more fun, I guess. I think that would be really cool. All right, zipper panel. I'm gonna start with my gusset pieces since I've got a nice square side here. Since I'm using waterproof canvas, I like to cut it a little bit wider for my zipper panels because when it's folded, you lose a little bit of width sometimes. So I'm gonna cut it like 1/4 inch wider. I can always trim it down, especially since it is a gusseted, or it's finished off with binding. Okay, so I'll clip these together and add it to my Dunzo pile. Which I didn't have. So I always keep my projects together in a little rolly cart bin, and then I have these photo storage bin pieces to put all of my hardware in, or even like my strap connector pieces, just so it's organized, nicely kept together. I like to do is just cut my lining pieces from my exterior pieces. I find this saves me time, but if you are not a fan, don't do it. Especially since this bag is finished with binding, like, if your pieces don't exactly meet up, you might end up trimming it down anyway before you add on binding. So it just saves time, I think. Okay, there's that. This is lining. Since I'm not adding a zippered pocket to the inside of this bag, or any pocket for that matter, I'm just gonna rough cut my lining pieces because you're gonna baste them together anyway. They get basted right sides together, so I'm like, why not? Same for my flap. Well, no, I will cut the flap exact because you put right sides together and the flap gets the magnetic snap on the lining side, so you want that to be as precise as possible. So you got me there. You got me there. I print my pattern pieces, when I remember, on a cardstock, which makes them easy to trace around with a pen. And they last a little bit longer than just plain paper. So this is a really lightweight waterproof canvas. It is from FWD Fabrics, it's just the Ottertex, but I think there's like less dye used or something, so that's why this is a little more flexible. So I am going to interface where the magnetic snap will go with a little bit of Sofuse Plus. And I'll just fuse it for like 3 seconds so that it doesn't start to melt. And then while I'm here, I'll go ahead and fold this in half and make little tiny slits in the center. And then if you have the pattern in front of you, which I do, I'll go ahead and mark out where the snap placement goes. Flap closure, okay, it goes 1 inch up. In the center. So marked that out. That's just gonna save us time when we get to our machine. There's that. This is the piece for my flap because it doesn't have the stabilizer. So I am gonna add a piece of stabilizer to the front of this where the magnetic snap will go. Oh, no, duh, it goes on the slip pocket. I'm dumb. I'm dumb. Okay, slip pocket. So that goes. So it's 1/4 of an inch. Math, please. So the pattern gives the measurement for after you've completed sewing the flap that you add that magnetic snap. So I'm just going to measure that past the interfacing. So 2 5/8 down in the center is where that snap is going to go. And 5/8 down, which is 2 inches up from the bottom edge. So got that marked there. And then I need my lining cut out of this piece. Again, you're gonna put right sides together and then top stitch. So it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be sewn together. So I will just rough cut my lining, clip it together, and then it's ready to sew when we get to our machine. So the last piece we need is my last lining panel, which again, this gets basted together. So I'll just go like this. Now, if you were gonna add any pockets to the inside, it is important that your pieces are cut pretty perfectly so that your pockets are lined up, etc. This is the front of the bag. I'm gonna add my nameplate to this, I think. Well, I guess it's the back, but I'm just gonna clip that together because that's all the pieces cut. All the pieces I'm adding. So now we can go ahead and sew this bag. If I didn't put the video all in one video, then this is a separate video and the pattern sewing will be released later. Me sewing the pattern, I will release later. I'm gonna make you wait for it. Okay, bye.